What's really interesting about that build and price tool, and I was fascinated about this because I was commenting about good things I liked with the Trail Boss, and I was doing a Trail Boss for Z71, and I actually have to edit that video heavily because everything's an option. It's like you look at that price point, 41,000, 38,000. That's garbage. Like nobody's
Yeah.
going to buy a truck for that because like you add cruise control, it's like $700, or whatever. It's no convenience pack. Excuse me. You add $2,000 for that. You add money for this. You want you want to do auxiliary switches. That's an option. If you want to do anything with this truck, that's an option. Adaptive
Yeah.
cruise is an option. Cruise control is an option. Heated seats are an option. It's like the stuff you actually want and you're going to see in press vehicles. You can't just buy at that price point.
Yeah. Well, the thing too is I think because there's only so far you can take these vehicles, optioning them out. And over the years, you used to get the Cadillac because it had the state of the art features. And if you wanted just a normal car, you get the Chevrolet. Like if you wanted those better features, you moved into a different brand. But with these, like we did a video on this where they're taking away, like on the Trail Boss, they took the map pocket away in the back of the seat. Something that's been standard since the 80s. But now, as you're saying, that's now an option. You're because they don't have anywhere to move these trucks to make them more optionable.
Yeah, they're shopping they're trying to get that comparable price point, but now you have all these ridiculous choices you got to make, and it's absolutely ridiculous. But I drove around that Z71 and I drove the Trail Boss. They're very interesting trucks, very different from each other, which I was surprised at. Yeah, I was shocked.
handling about these. I mean, obviously, you're different tires. The Z71 is more of a comfort vehicle, but what was your driving impressions of those two?
Yeah, so I thought, and this is where I really struggle with. I have a hard time reading press releases and truly understanding what the thing's going to be. I need to see it. You touch it, feel it, drive it, because then I can really understand. The Trail Boss is basically a work truck version of the truck with more off-road gear. The LT is basically the Z71 is basically an LT with more interior comforts and features. Is what that's kind of how we surmised it. And talking to the engineering, that's kind of how they kind of surmised it as well. The Trail Boss has the wider track, the 2-inch wider track. It's got the
it's got wider fenders, the plastic. Yeah.
Right. And so that wider track more planted on the off-road as well as on-road because of the way those tires are, but the bigger off-road tires. So you kind of get not as the same acceleration a little bit because you have turning more rubber. It's just a different driving experience. The Z71 for me is more of a comfortable plus more refined driving situation because the wider track, you have the different tires. You don't have the lift. I mean, it's a little bit different driving. And when you park them next to each other and walk around both of them together, it's shocking the difference. Like I did not realize, and again, reading the press release, how much difference a 2-inch lift does for the rear. So I had parked these together. I have a kind of a crappy TikTok video on it, but I have a better video coming later that shows it from horizontal. But when you get them side by side, the front fascia is different. The blacked out plastic there is different on the Z71 versus Trail Boss. It looks different. The lift looks different. Everything's different about it. Get around the back, and you have basically a 1.5-inch difference on the back of on the beds. And I need to take a measure really to get the numbers right. But I mean, the Trail Boss is so much taller in profile versus the Z71. But you don't. If I were to drive around town and just see them sporadically, I would not pick that up.
Yeah.
If you go to a dealer or if you go to probably more accurate these days, you go to a car show that actually has the vehicles. It is shocking to see how much different they were. And then inside the Trail Boss, it's interesting because inside the Trail Boss is really a basic interior, and it looks really plastically.
And that's what surprised me from seeing it in person, from doing build and prices as soon as we could kind of get an idea. And I have the picture up now because I did want to talk about this. So when you see this, you're like, that's a good looking truck. You're like, okay, that's probably soft touch. Just because you can't really tell, and they don't give you a lot to go from on these. So I'm looking at this going, well, that's a good looking truck. But then when we saw these at Chicago in person, I was amazed that the whole damn interior is just plastic. And not a bad thing. I'm not saying that as a bad thing, because the Trail Boss, if you take that off road, you want easy cleanup.
That's what. Yep. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of journalists who don't understand that. We're going to talk about how cheap it looks inside. It's going to be common complaint in reviews. I can see that,
Yeah.
But when you think about that customer who's going to take that off road, who just wants to take a rag and wipe off all the dust and things, because you always,
Mhm.
anytime I've been on a trail, I could be on a dirt road trail, I could a dirt road, I could be on a trail, I could be climbing rocks or whatever. The interior always gets dirty.
Yes.
I don't care what happens, especially some of these trail rides I do where they want to have windows down the entire time. It's like, oh my god. Um, so, but it always gets dirty. So I'm thinking from my aspect, it's easy to clean off.
Mhm.
The Z71 is much nicer interior, which is really surprising. And then the other surprising thing I thought was the 11.3-inch screen there. That's
Mhm.
standard stuff lineup,
Yeah.
which I was really. I mean, you don't. Again, those are details that you can read about, but until you actually get this in the vehicle and sit inside the vehicle, you don't really understand what that truly means. And so the work truck guy gets the same screen everybody else gets. But my criticism with the screen was it works great, the graphics are great, it's fantastic, but they didn't upgrade the camera lens resolution. And so the camera looks
Ooh.
so it doesn't look that great. So I'm like, you have this really beautiful screen, and you have it's still the same camera resolution. But this interior, I was surprised because online, as you see it with the photos you're showing, you think the same black plastic over top of the glove box. You just think it's the same. But in person, it's got red stitching going around, it's soft touch. It looks
Mhm.
so much different in person. And then I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting to see those kind of differences.
Yeah, the one thing that I feel is a confusing aspect is the seats. If you see them here, you got that kind of digital camo in these, which the Z71 is to me, it's a more luxury trim in the lineup. It's your nicer trim. That digital camo probably to me should have been in the Trail Boss. And obviously there is you can get leather seats and stuff in this, but I just feel like it was a miss. And me and Kelly noticed all the black piano finish around the shifter, and she commented this. She brought up in one of our videos, and it made a lot of sense. Is that in about a year is going to look so scratched up
Mhm.
because people use trucks for truck things. Now, once again, I know there's people we talked about it, put them in their garage, and that's their daily, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if I were to take this truck out in my profession right now of being a land surveyor, that truck would look so ridiculously abused within a year. And from what I can tell, because I haven't got to see the WT of this thing, it seems like across the lineup, they've just sort of like, here's the option, you get that. Um, and there's a
So
few touch I noticed that could have been well thought out.